Yeah.
I'm gonna hold that comment up there, Brock Savage. Man, you just freaking teed me right the fuck up. I did my chat. They always, they never let me down. Okay, that's awesome because Ed Gein, um, yeah, that would probably be an awkward. And hell, Texas Chainsaw Massacre would probably
Sure.
be an awkward one. But before we jump into that,
Mhm.
first, have you guys? And I'm sure you might not have. Have you seen the Ed Gein show yet?
I haven't watched a frame of it yet. I've heard conflicting things,
Oh yeah,
so
yeah, it's conflicting.
but
And
I,
I
I
know
do
Davy's
plan on it.
probably not into watching it, right? Because of our last
No.
conversation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I even have some. Speaking of teed up, I've got some stuff up here just of all the major inconsistencies that will help me prove a point here later on when we really dive into it. But yeah, I'm not really into the dramatization. I am
Yeah,
definitely interested in learning about these people that are complete anomalies. I find that fascinating, but the dramatization to me just seems kind of pointless to turn it into entertainment.
man. You don't even. But both. I'm kind of glad that both of you haven't watched it because I really want to have a discussion more about. I guess should you watch the show rather than if you've watched the show because my comments, I got some good views off of that, by the way. I'm like sitting at like
Yeah.
8,000 now, and you never know what's going to hit in YouTube. But I'm trying to let me pull up this image here that I have of it. Where's the damn poster? Maybe I'll just pull up like a random image. I'll pull up this right because this
Be
is
careful.
actually,
Be careful.
yeah, yeah. Well, this
I
image
love
right
that shot of
here.
Freddy. Oh my God, that shot of
Was that add to stage? Yeah. Okay. Let's pull that. Let's have that one up, and I'll take
mm,
Brock's. Okay. I think that's a good image because that's not real life. That never happened. That's the inspiration of Ed Gein. So, all right. I'll start with this. I like watching true crime. I love watching true crime, but I kind of separate the two as far as like dramatizations and documentaries. If you go into my comments of that review, I would say maybe half of them are and I got tired of responding to all of them because I was regurgitating. I kept saying the same thing. And this is just me. And let me put it this way, okay? Say there's a show coming to Netflix, it's a dramatization, and it could be true or it might not even be a true story, okay? And that's kind of my frame of mind when I go into any show, not documentary. We're not talking about documentary right now. We're talking about show. And the
mhm.
way I treat these types of shows on Netflix or any other streaming platform is I don't care if it's true or not. I mean, I care about the families and the victims and all that stuff, of course. But the show itself, I go into it with the mindset that none of this is true to me. I just want to watch this for entertainment value, and that might be a controversial approach to watching any show, but that's just my mindset. And then after I'm done with the show, I kind of ask myself, okay, did I like it or did I not like it? And when I got done watching Ed Gein, I was like, wow, that was amazing. I really enjoyed what Ryan Murphy brought to the table. Very artistic, very entertaining, loved, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'll say this. I loved how he added in the filmmaking process of Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a little bit of Silence of the Lambs. And it's structured in a way where it's like the first part of Ed Gein's life, and then we jump into Psycho, and we get to see like they dive right in. Like you see Hitchcock sitting at a table in a board meeting, talking to everybody about this movie Psycho, and talking about this case of Ed Gein that had just happened a couple of years before Psycho was released. So I mean, they hit the ground running after Ed Gein was captured. And then they jump into Texas Chainsaw Massacre at episode 4 or 5 or something like that. So refreshing to have a show based on a true story take that approach because 99% of these shows it's sort of like the rise and the fall, right? It's the same template. They do it for music biopics too. This was different. This was showing the cultural influence that this case had on pop culture, on movies, and it created, not just these box office hits, but these landmark movies. I mean, you got freaking Psycho, one of the most important films, not just horror, in all of mankind. It created the slasher genre, arguably. You got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, again, one of the most important films ever created. Both these movies are based off of freaking Ed Gein. So I go through the show. At the end of the show, then I say, you know what's cool about this? Some of this really happened. Not all of it, but some of it really, really happened. Oh, let me go do my research. Or, oh, let me go watch a documentary now, because then I'm going to find out the true story. I never expect 100% truth when I'm watching a dramatization. I'm lucky if I get 75% truth, There's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess untruths in this show.
Indulgences,
Thank you, Dave.
exaggerations,
Yeah, there's exaggerations,
glorification.
there's
A lot of liberties taken.
liberties taken, but in the sake of art, right? Especially when you're introducing Psycho, and then you see that image on the screen right there. Let's parallel Ed Gein actually doing the murder, the shower scene that's actually in the movie Psycho. And that particular scene is jaw dropping. Like they don't hold back. It's extremely violent. And I looked, it didn't really happen. But if they shot the Psycho shower scene today, this is the way they probably would do it. They wouldn't pull back. It'd be in full color, but I loved this approach. But I was kind of shocked by how many people really kind of hated the show. So, Nick, I don't know if I got your approach to watching these types of shows. Are you really into did you like Dahmer? Do you kind of, when you see trailers for these shows, do you kind of jump at them saying, oh my God, I got to see that?
It depends on the character. For example, Dahmer was some of the best television I've ever seen, personally.
And I say Dahmer is still the king. I still say it's a little better than Ed Gein, but carry on.
It's a series like Dahmer. It's going to make you feel a lot of things, but here's the thing with these kind of dramatizations, especially when it's Ryan Murphy at the helm. I know there's going to be a lot of liberties taken. If I want the facts of the case, I'm going to watch something that is presenting itself as the facts of the case. I'll give credit where it's due. I didn't see Ryan Murphy or anybody when Dahmer was coming out or when this was coming out saying, "Oh, this is an accurate depiction of everything." No, they clearly lean into the cinematic quality of this, and so that in and of itself tells the viewer, hey, while this is based around true events, yes, you're going to see things that actually did happen. We're going to kind of up the ante and massage some of the edges because it is television and we want to be entertaining at the end of the day. It's not like a mockumentary.
Right.
So, I don't have those expectations. Now, one complaint that I will agree with some people on is that it definitely does seem like Murphy at times gets, I don't know, he tries to make some of these things or characters or events a little sexy. And it's just kind of not everything's about sex and sex appeal. And I don't know why we're going there, but okay. It worked more in the Dahmer series because, Dahmer was a closeted gay man that was going to gay bars, taking men back to his apartment. That worked. But I guess you can make the argument at the end of the day that a lot of these serial killers have repressed, emotions and issues with that. So it works, but I just feel like it's a little glossy at times and a little overdone. But look, I don't hear the same complaints from people about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A movie that's been around for 50 plus years now that, tells everyone based on true events, there was a true story around this. And, you don't see people going well, hey, now guys, you're really over dramatizing this and you created this and this didn't happen. I think it's just popular now because the true crime era that we're kind of coming out of, but it really exploded during COVID. I think it made people look at these things with like a magnifying glass in some ways and be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be fetishizing this. Maybe we shouldn't be over dramatizing these things. And like, yeah, absolutely. I agree. There needs to be some lines there. But I don't go to these kind of Ryan Murphy shows for the facts.
Yeah.
I want to be entertained, and I don't think anybody can say that they're not entertaining.
Yeah. And before I go to Davey, I will say, don't take this as me telling people that don't want to watch this show because of the families. I'm not saying you should watch the show. Everybody, you know, there's a million different shows out there anyway to watch, and our time is so valuable. But I saw a lot of comments stating that I just don't feel right watching this show, and I could like, what's the point of doing that? Who am I to tell people what makes them feel comfortable and what makes them feel uncomfortable?
Yeah,
right?
if it's not something
that,
if it's not something you want to consume, you can't argue
Yep.
with somebody about that. They don't want to consume it for their own reasons. That's fine.
Yeah.
I do think that some of the complaints about this stuff are overblown for sure. Like I really think it is people reaching in a lot of ways. Like one specific example was like during the whole hoopla of the Dahmer thing, and people were talking about, there were a lot of things said that just kind of weren't true. Like,
Yeah.
for example, Dahmer's MO had nothing to do with like race. And I really hated how that became a talking point because like Dahmer lived in a low income area in a city, which, was predominantly minorities. Like that's just kind of how geography works these days in urban areas. It's just the way it is. And like Dahmer didn't, have anything, one goal in mind aside from, I think this person looks attractive, I want to keep them. So that's just one example of like, I think people run with certain things and draw their own conclusions, and they want to pick fights where fights really aren't there. But that's another conversation in and of itself.
Well,
yeah, it was the opposite with Dahmer. He thought black men were the most attractive. So
true.
That's why he went for them.
My heart always goes out to actual murder victims, and I think if anything, maybe it's sort of brings new life to their memory in a weird way because everybody's talking about it. Like one of the characters in this show, her name was Bernice. I want to say it's a W. Somebody
Bernice
in the chat. Warden. Yeah. Immediately I felt for Bernice Warden and her son after I watched this show. I didn't know because I didn't know if there was actually a sort of a relationship between her and Ed Gein until I went and watched the documentary after. And yeah, there are definitely some liberties taken, but it doesn't take away the fact that my heart goes out to the Warden family, to Bernice Warden. I still felt really, really bad for her. I didn't look at Ed Gein as a good guy in that. And they don't portray him as a good guy in the scene. They pretty much portray it just like it really happened as far as how the murder happened.
Well, and they didn't portray Dahmer as a good guy. Dahmer was a horrible person. They did show like things about his childhood that are true. Like, he did kind of have a rocky upbringing and some things he was exposed to that maybe did play a role in why he became who he became. But they're not saying that's an excuse for why he did what he did. They're just saying this is pertinent information. Maybe you need to know that his dad and him picked up roadkill and would dissect it at a young age. Like, I don't know. Me and my 5-year-old, we're not going to go pick up a raccoon in the street. Hey, you want to cut it up? Like, just seems a little weird. I don't know.
Davey, what's your thoughts on all this? I know you've already given your thoughts as far as like expand on it. Like, was there a catalyst? Was there something in your upbringing that kind of made you decide, you know what, I don't want to watch the true story type horror stuff. I'd rather kind of focus on fiction?
I think it's just how bad they are at being accurate. And it's not just the horror stuff. It's like, I think music biopics are like the worst. They're the worst offenders.
Oh my God,
but I think they're all pretty bad. To like, they turned Jimi Hendrix into somebody who was somebody that committed domestic abuse when the person like in that movie that was beaten by him like said that never happened. Weird shit like that. Don't even get me started on Bohemian Rhapsody and how like fucked up that movie is with how it tries to like tell that story. And then when it comes to the horror stuff, it's like, so, Texas Chainsaw Massacre does say this is based on true events. They're just talking out their ass, though. Like, yeah, there's some inspiration from Ed Gein, but they're not saying that this is literally like Ed Gein's story. They're just like, well, we took these aspects of that person and we put them on this character. It's like the Strangers say it's based on a true story. Like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I've never heard of this story. A lot of like random killings. I guess you could say that you base the Strangers off some random killing. So sometimes I think they just say it to like, it just create that buzz, like the Blair Witch Project. So it's like a marketing ploy in one end. When it comes to stuff like Ed Gein and Dahmer, here's the thing. There are plenty of people out there that can tell the difference between fact and fiction, and they know that everything's not real. But there are a lot of people that are going to go in there, and this is all they're going to get about Ed Gein, or it's all they're going to get about Dahmer is watching this show, because they just, there are people that just consume media. Whatever show is shelled out and shoved into their eyes, they just take it and then they move on to the next, and they don't ask any questions and they don't think about anything critically. Like, I mean, everyone in the chat and then us three here, we're all built a little bit different, where we're a little more curious and a little more thoughtful and probably more nuanced. I mean, I know the three of us are, because we get in trouble for being too nuanced and mature young men. But, when it comes to this stuff, I think that the person is going to be glorified. That's the end result of these dramatizations, is the glorification of the monster, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that you, Lee, are glorifying it by enjoying the show or anything like that. I watched your review. I thought it was a good review, but it ends up with it just, that's the way it rolls out. So let me just rattle off a few of these things, because these are pretty big inconsistencies here. Evelyn Hartley, the series shows Ed abducting and killing teenage babysitter Evelyn Hartley. In reality, Hartley's 1953 disappearance was never linked to Gein, and he denied involvement, even passing a lie detector test on the matter. Bernice Warden, the real Gein, admitted to investigators that he wanted to possess her because she resembled his mother, but he never had a romantic or sexual relationship with her. Use of a chainsaw. The real Gein used a gun to kill one victim and dismembered another without a chainsaw. Adeline Watkins, let's see here, portraying her as his girlfriend and accomplice. The real Watkins briefly knew Gein, but later retracted statements. Nazi inspiration. The show suggests that Gein's interest in skinning his victims came from being exposed to the crimes of Nazi war criminal Ilse Koch. While both Koch and Gein created items from human remains, there is no documented proof that Gein was inspired by her. Sexual activity. The show explicitly depicts Gein sleeping with the corpses of his victims. After his arrest, the real Gein claimed he did not have sex with the bodies because of the smell. Adding more victims. 6 victims. He killed 2 people in real life. So, and that's just like the psycho thing, Lee, really quick. Contrary to what the show implies, Gein's crimes did not inspire author Robert Bloch while penning his novel Psycho. So maybe it inspired Hitchcock when he adapted the book to a film, but the book was not inspired by Ed Gein. So, that's just a handful of things here. There's a couple others that, whatever, I've talked for long enough. So I struggle with these things, because if you're going to, we lost Lee? Lee's gone.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back momentarily.
He's mad at me. I think what, Nick, neither one of us have seen this. There's just something about, like, I do like the fiction approach, because then that way you're just making it all up. If you're going to make some of it up, just make all of it up. It's kind of like the Ed and Lorraine Warren stuff. Like The Conjuring, I'm like, these are kind of boring. Like, these people are like snake oil salesmen. Just like make up some fun shit, like.
And they do in the Conjuring movies. Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, they still go, oh, it was a true case, and it's like, you're True's doing the heavy lifting there. But no, I mean, to your larger point, I don't disagree with your overarching point here. I guess my thing for that would be, and I've seen some people chatting about it in the chat too, is like, I don't put that on the creators of these shows and these companies that put these shows out. I put that on the viewer. The onus is on the viewer. If you want to know the truth, especially in the internet age that we live in, if if you're choosing to not form, to not have critical thinking skills and to not, investigate these things on your own, that is your choice. But I'm not going to fault Ryan Murphy for a bunch of people with the attention span of goldfish not wanting to actually figure out what really happened here. I mean, it's like, again, you're right in that it's sad that in the age we live in, there's a lot of people that are going to take that as fact. But then I just look at that like, well, then we're not the same, because you can tell me anything and I'm going to look it up. I'm going to research it. I'm not going to just blindly believe shit because it's being put in my face. I mean, I remember when The Conjuring first started and I loved that movie when I saw it opening night in theaters. I went home and I researched that story. I wanted to know what actually supposedly happened here. How much involvement did the Warrens actually have? But sadly, we live in an age where a lot of people aren't going to do that. But furthermore, to your point, when you're talking about inconsistencies, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, loosely inspired by Ed Gein, no chainsaw. He never used a chainsaw. There's a lot of examples of this.
I understand that the creators aren't responsible for, people being dumb. Like, I'm totally with you on that. But isn't the onus for glorification of these monsters, isn't the onus on the creator ultimately? If their lies and if they're non-truths or indulgences or exaggerations ultimately end up glorifying and making a monster something that they weren't ever. Like, I do think the onus falls on the creators for that.
I do. I take issue with the premise of that question simply just because personally, like, I don't care if Evan Peters is playing Jeffrey Dahmer and I don't care how pretty it looks and how high the budget is. I watched that show and you see everything that Jeffrey Dahmer did to people.
Yeah, you do.
If people are going to be simping over Evan Peters, Jeffrey Dahmer, that says something about
they're pretty screwed up.
It was it was spelled out very clearly to everybody. Like, oh, in this episode, he's gonna kill someone and dismember them. In this episode, and it's like he's gonna smash a skull, and it's like, I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree. Like the Menendez brothers one, I will agree on that one because Ryan Murphy definitely had more of an agenda there, because that one is clearly a 50-50 issue. There's a lot of people in this country that feel like the Menendez brothers should be acquitted. They should be let out. And I think that Murphy is on that side too. So I think that kind of seeped out into his storytelling there. He wanted to kind of glorify them in a way and justify what they did. So the complaints that I heard from that show will totally agree with you there. And I haven't seen Ed Gein, so I can't speak to that. But with Dahmer, if anybody walked away from Dahmer and they're like, you know what? He was a misunderstood, cute little boy. You're fucked in the head. Like, I don't know.
Dahmer makes Gein look tame, I would say.
Yeah. And I think to give credit to Ed Gein, not that, but the show, it's almost like you can tell that he's not trying to tell the actual story beat by beat by beat. He's taken some crazy liberties, throwing in the influence of, Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Silence of the Lambs. And it was just a unique approach. And I think Ryan Murphy's not the first guy to do this. You could go probably 50 years back, and every biopic that's about a musician or a murderer, a serial killer, even somebody as meticulous as David Fincher took liberties in Zodiac. Because the reason they do that is because they still have a 2-hour window, 2.5-hour window, and they got to package this thing to be entertaining. And if you tell it in the format of like a documentary style, it just might not sell that well in movie form.
That's why I had an issue with the Menendez brothers and Ed Gein being season 2 and season 3, because I was like, there's not enough history there for you to stretch out 10 plus episodes unless you're going to over dramatize a bunch of it. Dahmer, you did. Dahmer killed over a dozen people over decades. Like, yes, you can stretch out a full season of television there, but like these ones, I just don't see how you could.
Yeah. And there's some fantastical scenarios in the Ed Gein show as well, where it's clear that even in the show, this isn't really happening, like the Psycho scene. The chainsaw scene is actually more of a dreamlike scenario. You know, it even has like a musical number in the background. So I like that he's trying to tell the audience, hey guys, we get it. This, what you're seeing right now, this did not happen. And we're trying to overstress that in the way that we're presenting the scene. So I think that's why it sort of works for Ed Gein. And I was kind of surprised by the response to it, but maybe I shouldn't, you know.
Well,
Let me get this super chat. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Davey, and then I'll get the super chat.
They allude to him like helping to catch Ted Bundy or something like that too? Did they do that in this show?
Yeah, there's a scene where basically it's a quick scene. They sit him down and they ask him more like what's in his mind, and
Gotcha.
he mentions a tool that Ted Bundy might use for a specific action that he does against one of his victims. So it's not really, you know, let me lay it all out for you. The complete. It's not like a Hannibal Lecter type deal where he spends. No, it's one scene, so it's not even like that. Relevant.
It's bizarre they did that because that didn't happen, and it's actually what Ted Bundy did to help catch the Green River Killer. So it's weird that they're taking like.
It just sounds like a Hannibal Lecter thing. They wanted to. They were like, we're going to make him Hannibal.
But it's funny because they're probably going to do a season on Ted Bundy, and Ted Bundy actually did, you know, assist.
And oh my God, that'll be like
it's bizarre.
How many dramatizations have they had on Ted Bundy? Hell, even in the last decade, there's probably been a couple.
A lot.
One was Zac Efron.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, hello there. You just watched an outrageous clip from the Hit the Bricks podcast. I really hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more clips, you can click here or you can click here. And you can just have yourself a ball, all right? And also follow the Hit the Bricks podcast on Spotify as well.